This is Manlihood, the podcast for men who want to rise up and live with purpose. With your host, Josh Hatcher, this show is here to help you level up as a husband, father, leader, and man, with real conversations and strategies to help you in every area of your life.
Welcome to Manlihood. I'm your host, Josh Hatcher, and today's guest I've known for quite a while. We got started, honestly, on this journey not too far apart. We started our journey right about the same time, and we've been making the content about the same time, but however, he blew up. Got noticed by, I think, Men's Health magazine, and he's got one of the biggest men's podcasts, honestly, in the world. And it's a huge movement called The Dad Edge and the Dad Edge podcast. You may have heard of it. Honestly, one of his biggest fans is Jon Bernthal. He's the guy that plays the Punisher, the actor that plays the Punisher. And he had him on his podcast, which we get to talk about that a little bit in this episode. But Larry Hagner is phenomenal. He's just a really great down-to-earth dude. We talk about fitness in this episode. We talk about what it's like to raise kids. We talk about relationships. So this is going to be a phenomenal episode. We're going to get into it in just a minute. But before we do, I just want to encourage you, if you haven't signed up for Manlihood Plus, this is where you're going to get bonus content. You're going to get content that you can't get anywhere else. You're going to get insights from me that are going to help you grow as a man. You're going to get insights that are going to give you really wisdom and challenging thoughts and things to help you on your journey as a man. And it's going to be for a nominal fee that'll just help you grow. Less than any other subscription that you're paying for. And you can subscribe for it right on YouTube or on Spotify. So if you've got YouTube and Spotify where you already are listening to the podcast or watching the podcast, you can just sign up for it right there. And you'll get access to videos or podcast episodes that you can only get there. So go to one of those two places, sign up for it. Really simple. I'd love to have you on board there. So Manlihood Plus. Also, we're going to have some coaching that we're working on. I'm working on our Rise Up coaching network. It's not quite available yet. We've got some bugs that we're working out on trying to find the right software to make it happen. I've got a couple guys that are going to be helping me with that in terms of a couple guys helping with some fitness coaching and maybe even some financial coaching for budget. And we're going to do relationship coaching, whatever the different areas and aspects of your life, helping you set goals. We're working on all that stuff now and pulling that together. And I'm excited to be able to bring that to you, but it's still in the works. It takes a little longer to launch this than I was hoping. So we'll keep you in the loop on that as it gets a little closer. But in the meantime, sign up for Manlihood Plus. It's going to be affordable, and it's going to be something that's really going to benefit you. So make sure you check it out on YouTube, and you can check it out on Spotify. Link should be in the show notes. Without further ado, let's get into our interview with Larry Hagner. Larry, it's great to have you back on Manlihood. How you doing, man?
What's going on, Josh? Good to be back, brother. Really good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So what's going on in your world? I just was scrolling on your socials just to kind of catch up with you, and I saw a picture of you without a shirt on, and I'm like, holy cow, when did the Incredible Hulk take over, dude?
Oh, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, man, I've been like just very, very dialed in on just, fitness journey, and, I'm making my way back, man. I had, pretty much an injury that stopped me in my tracks. It was a year ago, actually, this month. I didn't know it at the time, but I hurt my knee. That was the extent. I was like, oh, I tweaked my knee in a workout. It wasn't that big of a deal. Well, it wasn't until the end of October of last year. So I went like 8-10 weeks and the swelling in my knee wouldn't go down. I was like, why is this swelling not going down? I couldn't bend it. It got to the point where I could barely walk because it was so swollen. I was like, why is all the ibuprofen in the world and icing my knee 3 times a day? Why is this not working? Turns out I was bleeding internally in my knee joint because I ruptured what's called the synovial membrane. So I had synovitis, I think it's called, and I didn't know it, and then needed surgery to repair it. But it was horrible. Like, it was 3 months of immobility because it was so swollen, and finally got it fixed. And then that was an entire 4-6 month process of rehab. And so like, I finally like really, really jumped on getting back to being fit when I was able to do stuff again, which was about 10 weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, you're doing pretty well. Looks like you could crack walnuts with those abs, dude. So are you doing
Thanks,
75 hard now? Is that what you're working on right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And, the thing is, man, I actually love that program. I love 75 hard. This is the 6th time I've done it. And this has been the one that has produced the most results. But I've also have gone, like, I went all in on the other ones, but this one I've gone like so all in on that I've just tweaked and dialed in things just a little bit more. But just that little tweak has just paid dividends for sure.
Well, for our listeners that might not be familiar, what's the 75 hard protocol? If you could just kind of walk me through.
Oh yeah, sure. So you live by 6 rules every single day, and you do not deviate from the rules. And if you miss one of the rules, you break one of the rules, you simply have to start over again the entire 75-day journey. So it can be very, very tough, to do that. And the cool thing about it is the 6 rules make it very, very simple, but not easy. And so I'll explain what they are. So the first rule is you have to drink a gallon of water every single day. And that one for me is not hard at all because I've been drinking a gallon of water every day for 30 years. So it's just part of what I do. The other rule is you have to stick to a diet, and whatever diet that is for you. It could be a carnivore diet. It could be whatever, right? It's just the main thing is you stick to the diet. You don't cheat. You don't even eat like a piece of chocolate, like anything like that. Like no cookies, no nothing, not even a cheat day, not a cheat meal, nothing. Just you stick to your diet. 2 workouts a day for 45 minutes each minimum. One has to be outside. So right before this particular podcast, I walked 4.5 miles. Now that was an hour and a half outside, but that's what I'm talking about. I've tweaked certain things where I just do things longer. I do things more. I multitask or whatever. Take a progress pic of yourself every single day. That one I really didn't get until I started doing the program. And it really makes you dial in and stay faithful to everything because your pictures will show if you're doing it or not. No alcohol for 75 days. And then the last rule is read 10 pages of a self-help book every day.
So that doesn't sound complicated, right?
It's
like
not.
It's simple. Not
very
complicated.
Simple. Yeah.
But I can see where it would be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm on day 58 right now.
58. You didn't have to start over with it at all, right?
No. I've had to in the past, but not this time. Like I'm just really, really dialed in this time.
Did you have to skip anything that you normally like birthday cake or anything like that? Like anything like trip, like, okay guys, we're not going to have a birthday. I'm not going to eat birthday cake today or anything like that as you were going through. Yeah,
but the funny thing about like everybody that knows me, I don't eat birthday cake anyway.
So it didn't hurt. It wasn't, it wasn't a big deal.
It didn't. And the other thing too is like I've made things a little bit easier. So like I eat ice cream every day.
Oh, okay. So you just work that into your.
I just work that in. Yeah.
Work that into whatever your meal plan is. Ice cream, they say, isn't actually that bad for you. Like in moderation, right? Like a little bit. It's just cream and sugar as long as it's not like all the kind with all the candy and stuff in it, right?
Right, it is. But like mine is like I think it's okay for you. So for my birthday, my assistant actually got me a Ninja Creamy. Have you seen one of those things?
Oh yeah, those look awesome.
Yeah. So I eat ice cream every day, but how I make it is so I'll take a Fairlife that has 30 grams of protein, 150 calories. I'll put in I'll use chocolate. And I love peanut butter and chocolate. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Then I'll take a scoop of First Form's Formula One salted peanut butter protein powder, which, by the way, is one of the most delicious things on the planet. 2 scoops of that. I'll actually a scoop and a half of that. That adds another 30 grams of protein right there. That's 60 grams. Then what I do is I take I freeze that, put it through that mixer, and it gives you this incredible chocolate consistency. I take it one step forward, and I usually take some sort of like protein cookie or like a protein bar. Like I love, oh my gosh, what is it? That one guy who's a chef and he's like really buff, Robert something or another, but he makes the Fit Crunch bars.
Oh,
but
Robert
he also
Irvine or whatever.
Robert Irvine, yeah. But he makes these peanut butter chocolate wafer protein bars that are only about 200 calories, and they literally like taste like the Little Debbie like peanut butter wafer bars that they like literally taste exactly like that. I break one of those open, I shove them in that ice cream, put it through one more mix, and it makes chocolate peanut butter wafer crunchiness, 75 grams of protein
and then you
per
feel like
pint.
And then it feels like you're cheating, but you're not.
Oh, dude, it's in my personal opinion, like the ice cream that I make is actually better, and the consistency is better. It just tastes better.
That sounds like 75 easy.
It's pretty 75. That's one tweak to make it a little 75 easy. I'm not gonna lie. Like I look forward to it every day.
Yeah, that sounds like 75 easy, man. Yeah, no, that's the kind of stuff too. Like I've been working real hard myself. Just recently, I'm at about 85 pounds down. Been working real hard,
amazing.
dude. Yeah, it's been a real crazy journey. I had to get a hernia fixed, and I had to lose a bunch of weight to make it happen. I was up over the BMI level where they wouldn't do any surgery, and they're like, if you don't lose this weight, I can't fix you. I'm like, well, I'm in so much pain. If I don't get it fixed, what am I supposed to do? I couldn't even walk more than a mile. So losing the weight in that pain, you can't do the work to lose the weight, So I had to, make some pretty drastic changes to the way I ate and do things really different to lose it. So, so making those kind of changes and doing those kinds of things like that, like finding that thing that felt like a hack to trick yourself to do something healthy that was actually, enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like when, like I went down to one meal a day eating, the OMAD or whatever, dude, that is such a hack, cause when you eat dinner and whatever you're eating feels like the best food on the planet.
Right.
Something that you normally wouldn't even like a sweet potato. Like sweet potatoes are like, okay, normally, but when you haven't eaten all day, it is the best stinking sweet potato you've ever had in your life,
Right.
So that's kind of my little hack that I've learned, and it's really kind of helping me. So
that's awesome, man. And yeah, that OMAD thing, I did that for a while too. And I still do it to this day. Like I still throw in like, usually like a minimum of 24 to 48 hour fast, somewhere between there once a week. Mm-hmm. And then I'll OMAD on that day that I refeed. Mm-hmm. And then I'll usually find a couple other days of the week that I'll OMAD. It's really crazy. It's sort of like, it's way different thinking and nutrition than what I was used to. Like, it used to be like you eat every 3 hours, if you were really active, mm-hmm. which I did. And, I started doing the intermittent fasting and the OMADing and all that stuff, like probably 3 years ago. And that's where my fitness went to an entirely new level. Like actually eating less as far as like how often I was eating. I was still eating the same amount of macros and calories. I was just doing it in one meal. And all the science that I was taught back in college, because I have a degree in this, taught you cannot do that because the micronutrients, the macronutrients will not be bioavailable if you do that. And that's actually not the case. If you actually look at the studies now, it really doesn't matter unless you're doing really dumb things like, taking in 6,000 calories in one meal, which, I don't do that. And I know a lot of people don't do that. It's hard to physically even do that. But you can actually, like, if you take in 100 grams of protein in a meal, your body will absorb 100 grams of protein, as long as, like, you haven't packed in, 200 grams of protein, on the backside of 3 other meals that day. Mm-hmm. But, your body will absorb it. It's actually more effective than what we thought in the past.
Mm. So let's talk a little bit about the work you're doing with the Dad Edge, man. That, dude, I've been following that for years and watching what you're doing there. And so I've been kind of excited because seeing the guests that you've got on there, just seeing some of the people that you've had on recently, seeing John Acuff and Ken Coleman, but dude, you've had the Punisher on, man, and you've been on his show. Dude, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty sick right there. How did that connection come about?
I'm almost ashamed to tell you because it just shows you, like, how much of a rock that, like, I kind of was living under at the time. But it was kind of funny, man, because, like, so John Bernthal sent an email to me and I had no clue who John Bernthal was. Like, so he's the Punisher. I don't watch a whole lot of TV with 4 boys. Like, it's just, I don't have a whole lot of time to watch TV. Like, I'm not caught up on probably any shows. Mm-hmm. But the Punisher was one of them. But I had seen John Bernthal in, like, King Richard, where he's the tennis coach. I'd seen him in Walking Dead. I wasn't a huge watcher of that show, but I'd seen a few episodes. I knew him from, like, Wolf of Wall Street and, like, that kind of thing. And so I knew who he was. I just didn't know that was his name. Mm-hmm. So I got an email from him like, hey, man, like, I'm a big fan of your show. I listen to every episode. I'd really like to have you on this new podcast that I'm doing called The Real Ones. Would you be willing to come out to California and be on this? And I did not. It was one of those things where it was sent straight from our website into the email system. So I forwarded, or my assistant forwarded it to me. She's like, hey, like, this looks like a great opportunity. I was like, okay, well, can you research it and just see if this is a podcast, that we should be on? And she shot me a message back the right away. She's like, yeah, you want to be on this. And that's all she said. I was like, okay. I was like, well, go ahead and book it then. And then didn't know who he was. Well, then I saw a preview of, I think it might have been actually The Punisher. And I saw John Bernthal, and I was like, wait a second. I was like, where? And this was like a month later. I was like, where have I seen this guy's name? And I was like, wait a second. I was like, I'm pretty sure I didn't get an email from this guy, did I? And dude, sure enough, I go search it up, and I was like, oh my God, this can't be. And I messaged my assistant, and I'm like, hey, I was like, is this the same guy? Like, is this the Punisher? She's like, idiot. Yes, it is. Like, she was just like, yeah, you're an idiot. Like, yeah, that's him. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, did you book this? She's like, yeah, you're going next month. It's on your calendar. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, thank you. I had no clue that was who he was. So then I fly out to California. I bring my oldest son with me. I meet him at this house that he rented to do the podcast, and he comes walking out. He's like, bro, what's up? And I'm like, holy crap. He's like, dude, he's like, I'm such a fan. He's like, I love all your shows. I listen to all of them. He's like, my wife even gives me crap because I always have your podcast going in the truck. And I'm like, I can't even believe this is happening. So like, awesome. We do the podcast, and I was like, and he's like, he was asking me, like, he was like, hey, can we get a picture together? And I'm like, sure. I'm sitting there thinking, like, can I get a picture with you? Like, this is miraculous for me. Like, it sounds like this is a big deal for you, but I'm not really seeing why. But, and then I was like, this is a really dumb question, but would you be willing to come on the podcast? He's like, dude, yes, I'd be honored. Let's do it. So he came on our show. But that's how it started. And my kids and like, everybody who knows that story still to this day, they're like, you seriously live under a rock. I can't even believe you did not know that was the Punisher. Like, come on, man. I'm like, yeah, that was a really big mess. Maybe I should watch the news.
Well, I'm a big fan of his acting. I feel like in like 30 years, when people are like looking back, like when you look back now and you think of like, 30, 40 years ago, and you look back at like the best actors that people kind of like overlooked. I think everybody's going to be like, he's like one of the best actors of our generation that was totally underrated. Like nobody recognized how good he really is. Like I was watching, my wife and I've been watching The Bear. Dude, like he's the best actor on that show, you know? And like, just like, he's not even on the show that much. Right. And when he's on, he just commands he's just amazing. He's a great guy.
He's unreal.
Dude. And so he just like discovered your podcast and like fell in love with what you're doing, which is awesome, dude. And it's totally deserved too, because The Dad Edge is a fantastic show.
Thank you.
As I've been doing what I've been doing at Manlihood, I think we probably started at, you guys started 2015. I know, I started Manlihood a little bit before that, but it wasn't a podcast till a little later. So, I've been it was a while before I kicked Manlihood from a blog to a podcast, because I kind of had that analysis paralysis thing going on. So I've been watching, what you were doing as well and kind of learning. And I'm like, I had a background in radio, but I just couldn't kind of pull the trigger on, okay, am I going to do this? And so I've been kind of watching and paying attention the whole time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to do this. And so the whole time I've been watching what you're doing, I'm like, man, he's doing good stuff. And yeah, it's well deserved to be able to get that kind of attention. So yeah, it's good stuff, man.
I appreciate that. I want to share just something really quick about that is just about him in general. Like, so after I met him and, we've actually have had, a connection ever since. And we'll text here and there, and that kind of, like the guy is so talented. Like after I did that podcast, I was like, I think I'm going to go watch The Punisher now. Like, I'm really curious. And I watched that, and same thing. I was like, I cannot believe how talented this guy is. Like, I can't believe that was the same guy I met. Like, he plays this part so well. It's not even funny. But here's the interesting thing about him. He is the most imperfect, humble dude. Like, just a guy you could like, hey man, you want to go grab a beer? And he'd be like, yeah, let's go grab a beer. And just talk about everyday stuff. Like, there's very little Hollywood like in him. And that's why I love like his show, The Real Ones. Like, he is a real one. Like, he's as genuine as they come. Really is.
That's the way I felt because I follow his show as well. That's the way I feel when I watch like the conversations he has. Cause like he cares about the people he's talking to,
Yeah.
Like he's asking genuine questions and wants to get to know them. I love the episode he did with Shia LaBeouf, and just getting to the heart of that dude, which, that dude's crazy, which is, I'm not saying that as an insult. I think everybody's crazy. That's another whole podcast episode we could talk about there. Everybody's crazy. But, he just gets to the heart of that dude, and just like, what's going on with you, man? And let's, just like, you see his empathy and his compassion for people. And yeah, so it's awesome that you had that connection with him and you kind of build a friendship with him, which is pretty cool.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
But I mean, even more than that, dude, like, your consistency with the work that you're doing at the Dad Edge is admirable, because you're saying, I mean, I know the story behind why you started it. We talked about that when you were on the show before. Maybe we could refresh that story a little bit. Where did that come from?
The story of how Dad Edge got started?
Yeah.
The story was like, it started with a really bad moment with my 4-year-old, and he's 16 now, and I spanked him. And I know that, like, so, the way I was raised in an environment where there was always heavy hands. I was talking about this on another podcast this morning. I was raised with, and I think a lot of guys, my age were raised in that generation. And to be quite honest, like, it was somewhat normal. It sucked. And there was a lot of things that you had to deal with, if you're hit a lot as a kid. But as a kid going through that, you didn't look at that and be like, this is abnormal. Because, like, I had friends that, like, got the belt and stuff like that. Like, their dads were heavy handed too. So I felt like, my childhood was definitely one that's really, really unique. I mean, like, my dad, my biological father, left not once but twice. Once when I was newly born, and then he kind of re-entered my life again when I was 12, and then checked out again. And then I ran into him by accident when I was 30. And at the time, I'd just been married for 2 years, was expecting our first son. I was kind of like new into my career as a medical device salesperson. So like it was 19 years ago. And we met, and we've had a relationship now ever since. It's not your typical father-son relationship, but it is a relationship. But I grew up definitely with a lot of baggage. Like I knew my mom had been married 3 times. My mom suffers from alcoholism. Every guy that she ever dated or married was a complete disaster. You know, usually some sort of substance issue. They were abusive. They were heavy-handed. Like it was a mess. So when I became a father for the first time in 2006, and when I got married in 2003, I was like, okay, I'm going to make myself I'm going to make myself 3 promises. Number 1, I'm not going to get divorced. At all costs, I'm going to try to make sure that this marriage always stays on point, right? Which means promise number 2 is I'm going to be a good husband. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm going to be a good husband. And then the 3rd promise was I am never going to strike my children out of anger, period. And it was in 2012, I broke that promise. And that's how Dad Edge got started. And up until that point, like I had a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old at that time. And I was floundering, like survival mode at its finest, like barely figuring out marriage, so many misunderstandings. We had a mediocre marriage at best. We were roommates. We had intimacy, but not nearly the level of connection we have now, which is we've been married now 21 years. I wasn't patient or graceful with my kids. I did not have the headspace. I didn't have the skills to even know how to do it. All I knew is what I didn't want. And what we focus on grows, what we focus on expands. And if we're focusing on everything we don't want, well, what you don't want will probably be the thing that happens. Which brings me to my 3rd rule, which is I'm not going to hit my kids out of anger. And when my son he's 16 now, he was 4 at the time, he stepped out of line as any 4-year-old would. And what did I do? I reacted with anger and I spanked him. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is I spanked him so hard that he lost his footing and he tripped and he fell. But it gets worse than that. I went to go help him up because I knew immediately, like, I was like, oh my God, I did not mean that. And like, I was devastated right out of the get-go, right when it happened. I was like, oh my God, like what the hell did I just do? And I went to go help him up. And the thing that kills me, the thing that I can never, ever get out of my mind, ever, is what I saw when he saw me coming up to help him. He was laying on his stomach. He rolled over on his back, and I went to go help him. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, are you okay? I'm so sorry. And he closed his eyes and did this. And I was like, oh my God, like what the hell is going on here? And that was it, man. Cause like in that moment, I no longer saw like this really fantastic, wonderful 4-year-old son. I saw that, but what I actually saw was me. Because like, I remember being in that position where I'm like, I just wish this guy would stop hitting me. Or I know a beating is coming. I know a slap in the face is coming. I know a spanking's coming. And I'd just be like that. And that was it, man. That was it. I just started researching and learning, and that turned into a blog. A blog turned into a podcast, and now we're doing what we've been doing now for a decade.
It's awesome. That's awesome that your journey of trying to figure that out, I mean, and now you're helping thousands, I mean, there's thousands of dads who are able to work through that, and it was kind of the same with what we're doing here, where, I recognized that there was a lot of things I needed to figure out. I needed to be able to preserve the things that my dad taught me and pass it on, and, it wasn't, there were things that I needed to learn that I knew I needed help with, but also things that I had learned that I needed to pass on, and I say that all the time. People are always like, well, hey, it's not, the work that I'm doing here isn't just about me telling you what you need to hear. It's a lot of times it's me figuring out what I need to hear. I'm preaching to myself here most of the time. And I think that's kind of what you were saying when you started this. This is me figuring this out because it's what I need to figure out. So I'm healing out loud, So That's kind of what I'm getting out of what you're saying, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good, I think that's a really good analogy. You know, it's like you're healing out loud, you're actively healing, you're creating a better experience, you know, and connection with your own kids than what, you know, you had growing up. And I think that's the journey, right?
Yeah. So, what does it look like for the guys that you do help? You know, do you get a lot of feedback from them? Or they, you know, do they let you know, hey, this is helping me. I'm learning from what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, luckily we experienced that, I would say, like on the daily, right? Through our facilitated coaching calls. Like, you know, one of the things that we always try to extract out of calls is like, what is working? Like, how are you winning? Right. And we have ways like, so like, for instance, we have two different programs. One's called the Boardroom. That's for business owners. And then we have just our regular, you know, program for guys called the Alliance, right? That's more of our 9-to-5ers. The reason we separated them is because, you know, guys who are business owners, I'm not saying that they're better or worse than guys who are career guys, because I've been both. You know, I'm a business owner now, but I was a career guy for, you know, almost 2 decades. And what I can tell you is that the needs are just different, right? So like when you're a business owner, it's like when I say this to other men who are business owners, they're like, yeah, dude, that's about as accurate as you can describe it. I have 4 boys and my business is my 5th. That's what it feels like anyway, right? Because it takes a lot of nurturing. It takes a lot of guidance. It takes a lot of TLC. It takes a lot of my energy, a lot of my emotional, physical, you know, mental energy as well.
It wakes you up to change a diaper in the middle of the night.
Right. You know, and, but I'll tell you, like, career guys, they have needs too, right? I remember being in a career, but the cool thing about being in a career is that for some careers, not all, there's an on and off switch, right? Like when I am not at the office, let's just say you drive for FedEx. You know, once you're done with that route, you're no longer working, right? You're not, and you're like, that's my life at work. This is my life at home. When you're a business owner, that button never truly gets, I don't think, all the way pushed, right? It doesn't get fully activated because you're always thinking like, okay, at any moment, like I either need to be growing this business, I need to be stopping a bleeding somewhere, I need to change my marketing plans, I need to follow up with customers, I need to make sure my team is doing well. It is so much, right? And that's why we've separated the 2 different programs. And the feedback, and to answer your question, is, so let me just take a couple of different feedback lessons from the Boardroom. Guys will tell us like, I never would have thought in a million years that I could have a thriving business, an incredible marriage, and an awesome connection with my kids. In fact, I actually thought the mentality was I can only have one or the other. I can either have a thriving business at the expense of my family, or I can have an amazing family and have a mediocre business that drives me crazy. But you can actually have all of it if you want. The things that we always hear is men will say this: I'm learning the skills in my business and in my family that actually make me way more effective and way more efficient. I actually don't need more time in business or with family. I know how to be effective. So that's what we hear. So like, if you want to create more intimacy with your wife, a better connection with your wife, and you know exactly how to do that from a skill set perspective, well, then it's pretty darn easy. And you don't need hours and hours and hours for that. You can actually do it in 15, 20 minutes. You know, and when I say intimacy, I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about a connection with your wife. If you want to become more connected with your kids and you want to create an environment where they want to tell you everything, right? They feel safe telling you everything. Well, it's a good thing because we teach you a skill set, creating an environment of psychological safety where people feel like they can tell you anything. And that's a great skill to have in your business. That's a great skill to have with your kids. And it's a great skill to have in marriage. So like some of these skills absolutely overlap, but what men will tell you is like, I finally feel confident knowing what I'm doing, right? In those areas. Like I actually know the recipe to make these things happen when I want them, right? And that's when one of the biggest aha moments is there's no guessing anymore. They know exactly what to do and when to do it.
Let's unpack some of those tools, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about some of that. So let's talk about maybe your marriage for a minute. How can I, as a husband, because honestly, that's the foundation, right? I mean, I know not every family unit is always fully intact, but let's talk to those family units, at least for the moment, that are intact.
Yeah.
How can I, as a husband, work on that foundation with my spouse so that, I can have that better marriage so that my family is whole, my family is better. What can I do to build that relationship there?
Yeah. Do you mind me being a guinea pig with you?
Sure.
To hit this point home?
Sure.
Okay. And by the way, if you don't know the answer to these, that's really okay. It's actually going to make you like way more relatable, I think, and I say this all the time too. It's like anytime I'm on a podcast, like whether I'm on it or like I'm hosting it, I always learn something. But do you know the 3 basic needs of your wife as it relates to the relationship with?
Sure.
Yeah.
The 3 basic needs of my wife. I'm going to say probably the first one I'm going to say is probably security.
Okay.
She wants to feel safe.
Yep.
I know that she wants to feel love. She wants to know that she feels loved. And she wants to feel heard.
Yep.
Am I right? Is that the 3 basic?
You got 2 out of 3 right.
Two out of 3 right?
By the way, the love one happens by default when these 3 needs are met.
Okay.
So it's actually seen. You nailed that one, right? It's heard and safe. Seen, heard, and safe.
Seen. Okay.
Most of us have no idea that's what our wives actually need. And then once we understand that those are the 3 basic needs, because you're right, she does need to feel love, right? But in order for her to feel love, those 3 needs, once those are filled, she feels all the love in the world. But most of us have no idea what those needs are. And if we don't know the needs, then we're just guessing of like, what does she need? Like, how do I provide what she needs? And well, if I don't know them, then I really don't know. And this is what I mean, effective and efficient. So if you know the 3 needs, you can be very effective in a short amount of time. So, and here's just food for thought. Here's our basic needs as men in relationships. We need to feel respected, appreciated, validated. So respected, and one of the worst things you can do too, by the way, is disrespect a man, emasculate a man, call a man names, don't appreciate him, tell him all the wrong things that he's doing. That actually moves the needle in the opposite direction for a man. If you really, really want to pour salt in a man's wound, then disrespect him, say things that you can't stand about him. So in other words, do the opposite of appreciating him publicly, and that will destroy him. Right? Especially in front of his kids. Like it kills a man to be emasculated like that. But so like for instance, we know now seen, heard, and safe, right? So what we teach several skills to our guys with what we call conversational excellence, right? Connection excellence in marriage. One of them is we teach these guys how to be an incredible listener. Now, let me just unpack that for a second. When we think listening, we think of why I'm hearing the words, right? I'm listening to every word she's saying. It actually goes a step deeper than that. What you actually have to look for is, hey, what is she feeling when she's talking to me? So if she's venting, there's probably a really good chance that she's sad or she's overwhelmed or she's exhausted or she's frustrated or she's annoyed or agitated, right? Those are 1-word emotions. So when my wife comes to me, and this is what I use, I'll tell you what good looks like, and I'll tell you what not so good looks like. And man, I've done both. I've done the bad stuff way worse than I think even most. So in the past, my wife would come to me and she would, I'd be like, "Hey, sweetheart, how was your day?" And then she'd be like, "Oh my God, today was terrible. I got this medical bill in the mail. Like we owe $1,200 for an ER visit, and it's due in 3 weeks. And, Colton spilled milk all over the table, blah, blah, blah. And then this happened. And then I had to call the repairman because our radon thing isn't working right." And these are all actually real things that happened in the past week. So before I'd immediately be like, well, I was like, "Let me see the bill." I was like, I'll take a look at the expenses and see what's going on. I'll tweak some things, blah, blah, blah. And I understand Colton. Yeah, he can be kind of a pain. And well, the radon thing, what's up with that? Why is that such a big deal? And that's kind of the way I used to talk to her. And then I would go right into problem solver and advisement mode because that's I'm just solving problems. In fact, I love her more if I can just take her pain away, right? That's not the way our wives receive it, though. The way they receive it is, you're not listening to me. And our response is, what are you talking about?
I just fixed
literally
just said, yeah.
I just fixed I just gave the solution to the 3 problems you just laid out. How am I not listening to you? You're not understanding. No, I think I did understand. No, you don't. And I would get to the point where I would get, and sometimes my wife would be like, no, that's not it. Or like she would dismiss my advice. And I finally got up to the point where I would tell my wife, you know what? If you don't want my advice, don't talk to me. Like, I was such a jerk about it. Like, there were times where I'd be like, if you don't want my advice, then don't talk to me. And my wife would look at me like she was heartbroken. And I'm like, but I would be thinking very logically, right? I wasn't thinking emotionally. Then I learned about how you emotionally validate a woman. And that's how she feels seen, heard, and safe. So all I do now is on a day like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds incredibly frustrating. I don't know who wouldn't be frustrated if they were confronted with that. Like, so tell me more about that. What's going on? And my wife would just keep talking, and she would just get closer and closer, like intimacy wise, right? Connected wise, all these things. And all I would do is I'd validate her feelings. I'd try to figure out, what is she feeling? Say it out loud, ask for more detail. Sometimes I'd say things like, how can I best support you right now? What feels right to you? And she would like melt. And I'm like, and I was taught all these things, and I'm like, I can't believe that conversational excellence is actually more of me being an emotional validator and listening to her. And I don't actually have to solve a thing, ever. All I have to do is be compassionate, empathetic, and know how to label her emotions. And that's seen, heard, and safe, boom, boom, boom. It falls like a domino. And there are times that we would walk away from conversations where I'd barely say anything. And she'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. This has helped me so much. And I'd be like, it's kind of like a deer in the headlights. You're like, what did I do? You know, like, you listened to me. Well, I was doing that before. Yeah, but not like this. So that it's different, you know, like, and here's the thing that trips us up. Like, if I'm going through a bad time and you and I are friends and I call you up on the phone and be like, hey man, like, me and Jessica aren't really connected right now. Like, I feel like she's kind of drifting away. Like, we're not really talking. We're not really having sex. Like, I feel like some of her words are kind of dismissive. I really don't know what's going on. And you're like, oh man, that sounds really frustrating. I'd be like, what do you think I should do about it? What am I not seeing here? I'm telling you these things because I want your advisement. I want you to help me. Otherwise, I wouldn't waste your time or mine, right? But women are so different when it comes to that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that is 100% exactly what I've observed. And what's funny is we still default to that. Like, we have to train ourselves to be that empathetic listener. And then you have to keep reminding yourself to go back to it. Because the default is going to be just like our bodies, right? Like, you train yourself to get healthy and to keep doing the 75 hard, right? To keep going back to that, because the default is going to be to sit on the couch and get flabby.
100%. Yeah.
You have to keep training yourself to go back to that discipline of listen and then respond with the thing that is going to be helpful to her.
Yeah.
Because if not, the default for me is going to be, okay, let me solve these problems real quick.
Yeah.
That's not necessary. And to be fair, sometimes she actually does want you to do the thing.
100%.
My youngest son-in-law that just married my youngest daughter said to me, dude, he was like 16 years old and they started dating. And the kid is like emotionally the most intelligent kid I've ever met. You know, my daughter's having a freak out mode, which, you know, she's the baby of the family. They're good at that, you know? And he says to her, he says, honey, do you want me to solve your problem or do you just want me to listen right now? I'm like, where the heck did this kid come from? How come nobody taught me to do that?
Right?
Where was that question? If I would have known, I could have asked her that. I've been raising this girl for 16 years. I didn't know you could ask her that question.
It's 100%. You know, and here's where I think the easy button is for us guys. There's good news for us guys. You don't have to overcomplicate this because your kids have the same need as your wife.
Right.
They need to feel seen, heard, and safe. And guess what? The gender doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're a boy or a girl. It doesn't matter if they're a teenager or an 8-year-old. Those needs are the same. My 18-year-old, still to this day, he just turned 18. He's a senior in high school this year. His 3 basic needs are to feel seen, heard, and safe. Like, it's still the same, right? And that's really good news for us as men as we learn these skills, because the skills are the same. Now, obviously, you're going to tweak them intimacy-wise, right? But the needs are the same. You know, there's one other thing, too. I love how you asked that question, because asking a question of, like, do you want me to listen or do you want me to solve, right? The way you word that can be very condescending to a woman, right? Because when we ask that question, what we could be insinuating is, I don't trust you enough to figure this out on your own. You're going to need my help, right? Which doesn't make them feel very seen, heard, and safe. So when I ask that question, the way I was taught to ask it, and it does work really, really well, is like, hey, before we go any further with this conversation, I just want to make sure that I am being the best support to you that I possibly can. And right now, because I'm a dude, I'm confused. And I'm wondering if you just help me out. So here it is. Do you want me to keep listening? Because I'm all about it. Like, if you want me to just sit here and listen, I would love to do that. And, or if you need to talk, if you need to bounce some solutions of what you think might be most effective in this situation, you just need someone to talk about that with, like, I'm down for that too. Which one feels best to you? And I like using those words, which one feels best to you, because our kids and our wives are feelers. They're not necessarily thinkers. I'm not saying they don't think, but they're a bit more emotional than we are. And when you say which one feels better to you, that lands very, very well for them. Like, oh my gosh, this is a really fantastic conversation because it's depth, right? When we think of feelings, we think of depth. When we think of logic, we think of surface level thinking. So when you say what feels best to you, they like that. They do.
John Deloney
Yes.
says a lot. He talks about, how can I best love you
guy.
today? Or how can I best,
Oh my God,
you
yeah.
mentioned how can I best serve you today? Same concept. Like, it's such a great question. And I've yet to ask that to my wife, because she listens to Dr. John Deloney. So she knows I would be like, if it almost would feel a little bit manipulative, I think. So we've got to, I don't want to mess with her too much, but it's a great question. You know what I mean? Because it puts the ball in their court to be able to tell you, like, all right, this is what I need from you. This is how you can serve me. This is how you can help me. And
I love that. Which, by the way, I just texted my wife that we'll do a little guinea pig experiment with her, see what she comes back with.
Yeah.
I'll let you know what she says.
Take out the trash.
I did that last night. So.
Yeah.
I guarantee she'll be like, I don't know, like, you must be on a podcast or something like that. That's what I get.
Well, if she lets you know before we're done with our interview, let me know what she says. Oh, man, that's awesome. Yeah, man.
Oh, my God. She just replied. And you know what? I didn't know what she was going to say, but this is what she said. I'm good. Let me best love you by taking care of dinner and taking Lawson to practice tonight so you can work just a little bit longer today to get some things done.
See, you know what that says? That says that you've done a good job at investing the things you needed to up to this point. Good job, man.
Well, you know what's really funny? I didn't know she was going to say that, because my wife has a very dry, sarcastic sense of humor, which, by the way, I just love about her. She's hysterical. And sometimes you have no idea if she's kidding or not. So, like, I was literally expecting, like, some sort of funny, like, snarky, sarcastic answer, which, by the way, I take zero offense in because I know that's how she operates, and I think she's funny as hell. But, like, I didn't know what she was going to say. But I do think there's no way, not a chance in hell, I would have gotten a response like that 10 years ago. I might not even got it 7 years ago. But this is what I mean. Like, when you feed a relationship properly and you serve the needs of someone from a relationship standpoint, a lot of time, I'm not saying all the time, because there are some, I have one-on-one clients. I have a couple clients right now. Their marriages are a mess, absolutely a mess. But there's been a lot of things that have happened, a lot of water under the bridge. And you see those responses too. So when a guy is like genuinely trying, I always tell guys, I'm like, listen, you're going to work with me for 3 months. And I will tell you the first 8 of them are going to suck. You're going to be doing things. I'm going to be pushing you to do things. And you're going to come back and be like, God bless. Like, she actually hates me more. Or she doesn't like it, or she like fights me a little bit on it. Like when I'm like, it's almost like she looks at me like, oh, don't even try. Right. And that's because their wives, a lot of times, because we fall asleep as husbands. We just do. And guess what? So do they, because we don't know what we don't know. But when that happens, that water under the bridge gets deeper and deeper, and the current gets stronger and stronger. And then when you ask a question like that, how might I best love you today? And you have a woman who hasn't had her needs met in years, that's when she's kind of like, F you, I'm fine, right? Versus when you give and you're selfless and you know what you're doing, that's when you get an answer like what Jessica just said, which, by the way, your answer really surprised me. I thought you were going to be sarcastic. Your answer surprised me. I thought you were going to try to be funny and sarcastic, but I loved it. What? No, what'd you say? She goes, yeah, you can't always judge what I'm going to say. That's her sarcastic.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
right there.
Yeah, my wife has a really good sarcastic sense of humor, but she knows that I don't get sarcasm, so she doesn't toss it at me.
She doesn't talk.
Yeah, she's like, Josh doesn't know sarcasm, so we don't play that. She doesn't torture me that way, so my sarcasm filter doesn't work very well.
It doesn't. You know what's interesting about it though is that when you like, because here's the cool thing too, is like, it's not only like I'm doing the right things in the relationship, but when I'm leading in that way, like it's so like, for instance, when a lot of guys come and work with me, or like guys might be listening to your podcast right now and be like, dude, I'm trying and it's falling on deaf ears. Like, I'm trying so hard. And that probably means that there's water under the bridge of your marriage, right? Something's going on. There's resentment in there. You know, you guys aren't aligned, and it does take time. Like, it took me and Jess years to get to this point where we're like this. But here's the really cool thing is when you lead like that, right? And here's what I mean. Number one, you are going to fulfill these 3 needs of your wife. That's your job, period. And you don't do it because you want to get laid, and you don't do it because you want something. You do it because that's how you operate in a relationship. And by the way, that doesn't mean you're a welcome mat. That doesn't mean you get walked all over. That doesn't mean she can call you names and emasculate you and you're just going to keep filling her needs. That just means you're part of you're cleaning up your side of the street, right? In that relationship, you're doing the things that need to be done regardless of whether or not she's cleaning up her side of the street. If she doesn't want to clean up her side of the street, well, people either make a decision to step up into the relationship, or over time they don't. I always give guys a warning. I'm like, look, there's a 90% chance that this will probably work out okay if you put in the work. And there's a big chance it won't be there by the time we're done working together. My job is to build this toolkit with you for the next 90 days where you can like recover this relationship over the next year. But there's also a 10% chance that she's not going to budge, and she's had enough and she's done. And as long as you evolve into being this new man, because that's what we do, is we build a man from the inside out, you might look at her in 90 days and be like, I thought I really wanted this, but now that I've learned and evolved and I've grown, and if you're not along on this relationship like I am, I'm vested and I've proven it, maybe we're not right for each other. And that man goes on to find somebody else that really works with him, right? And that's fine too. I don't want that. I always want marriages to work out, but you can't control the other person. But one thing I can tell you is that when you're operating like that, you're leading. Like, I know for a fact in my relationship with my wife, it would not have turned around had I not been like, this is the way I'm operating in our relationship, regardless of whether or not you're doing it. Well, she wants to keep up. She's like, well, if you're doing this, then I want to fulfill your needs. What are they? And then we talk about them, right? And then like, we now have like this incredible relationship where it's very intimate, but we're also like amazing best friends. Like there's no one else on the planet I'd rather hang out with than my wife, because she, like, we just get along that well. And but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work, and you got to be willing to pave the way as the man, to lead, right? And you might be paving the way, and you look back and she's like, oh, look at that. She's right there with me. She's working with me. We're working together, right? And I'm working with her. She's working with me, vice versa, right? And you might also look back and be like, she's not doing a thing. And actually, she might even hate me more for it. That's really rare, but it might happen. And a guy might get so far down the road that he's like, this is not a relationship that serves me anymore. I'm a new man. I've grown, I've evolved, and I've outgrown this relationship.
Yeah, I feel like if you've done the work, then you've done the work to be able to be strong enough to make it through that.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
I like to ask all my guests a couple questions. We've got a few minutes to be able to do that, if you're okay with that.
Are we doing lightning round or like?
We got a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Just
cool.
A couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm good.
Larry, what does it take to be a man?
Ooh, wow. I'm going to throw out some words just for the interest of time, but all these are very meaningful to me, right? Integrity, character, honesty. I think if you leave people better than how you found them, that's a very fascinating trait of a human being, not just a man, but a human being. Being able to meet people where they're at, listen to them, and to be all, and what it means to be a man too is you can be kind, compassionate, and I'm also dangerous. You mess with me or my family, I'm gonna either die with me getting between you and them, or I'm probably gonna end you, one of the two, right? But I can choose to be dangerous. I'm not dangerous out of control, but I can choose to be that way if I need to, because I'm a protector and I provide and I lead. Those are the things I do as a man.
That's a great answer. I feel the same way, man. Yeah, and you look like the Incredible Hulk without your shirt on, so that's very possible.
If the Incredible Hulk was 180 pounds, maybe.
Like a mini Incredible Hulk.
a mini one, yeah.
All right, man. If you could travel back in time and talk to 10-year-old Larry, what are you going to tell him?
You're not always going to be fat. You're not always going to be bullied. You're not always going to be picked on. You're not always going to have F's in school. And you're going to have an incredible family, 4 amazing boys that you think the world of, and they think the world of you. You're going to have a beautiful wife one day that you're just smitten for all the time, and she's smitten for you. I know life for you sucks right now, but that's what's on the other end of this. That's what's there for you. Because at 10 years old, I mean, dude, I was having suicidal thoughts at 10 years old. So that's what I would tell myself, that there was hope. There was something out there for me, that life wasn't always going to look the way it did.
Yeah, I think I knew that 10-year-old boy too, man. I get it.
Yeah.
So, what is your best advice to the men that are listening today?
My best advice is this, is that be a lifelong learner. And if you don't know how to be a good husband or father, well, join the club, because none of us are taught that, right? The same way you go about anything that you learn in life. Like I did 13 years of martial arts. I did Taekwondo, I did Kuk Sowan, and I did Krav Maga. I did 3 different arts over 13 years. Really loved it. I haven't done martial arts for 10 years. I just started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like literally last week. I feel like an absolute idiot out there. Like, I just suck. And you know what? Because of what I've learned, I am really okay with sucking for a while, because that means I'm growing. I'm learning. I'm green again, right? And here's the message I give men. If you don't know what to do in your marriage, it feels exactly the way I do right now in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm stumbling. I don't know the moves. I'm like just out there like on raw instincts. But I have an instructor. and I have a class. And I can't wait for 4 months down the road when I really understand some of these moves because I'm learning. So the perception is, I can't be better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu unless I go to class and learn. And guess what? Your relationship with your wife is no different. It's no different. We think it is, but it's not. The relationship with your kids, it's no different. Whatever you do for a living, if you were, like, I learned this about a month ago, barbers need 900 hours of experience before they're graduated and they can actually go be a barber. And none of us even have, before we have a kid, even 20 hours of education probably around how to raise this kid or even take care of it. We're going on what people tell us and what the doctors are telling us to do, but you can learn all of these things if you just perceive it in that way. And most of us don't. We're like, I should just be great at this. I should be a good father automatically. I should be a great husband automatically. It doesn't happen without learning.
Good stuff. Thank you, man. Yeah. Larry, if our guys want to get in touch with you, they want to learn about what you're doing, how can they make that happen?
Just got dialed 1-800-DAD-EDGE. I'm kidding. That's the first time I ever said that. I have no idea if that's even a working number. You can just, if you're a podcast listener, like I've got enough content, 1,230 episodes or something like that, that'll keep you busy for a long time. I encourage you not to be a content consumer and be an action taker. But if you're in that camp right now where you're just like, hey, I just want to consume content, that's okay. Dad Edge Podcast got you covered there for a while. You can find other resources, other free resources. If you go to thedadedge.com, you can click on the resources tab. You'll see a couple of resources in there for marriage. You'll even see resources in there how to connect better with your kids, how to be more present with them. And if you want to be involved in one of our group coaching, you just got two pathways. Either you're a business owner for the boardroom or you're a career guy that goes into the alliance. You can find all the information there at thedadedge.com/mastermind. Awesome. Hey, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. And I'll make sure to link your stuff in the show notes so the guys can connect with you as well. Cool. I appreciate you, and thank you so much, man. Thank you. Back at you, brother. Talk soon. Thanks. Larry, thank you so much for being on Manlihood. I appreciate you. Thanks for this conversation, and thank you for all you do, man. You're doing great work over at the Dad Edge, but you're also a great dad. You're a great husband, and I want to just thank you because even that stuff that you think doesn't matter to everybody else, and that maybe it only just matters to your family, guess what? It matters to the rest of us, because what you're learning and what you're putting into practice at home is helping the rest of us and the rest of the world. So it matters. Thank you. Guys, I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Go support the work that Larry's doing. Speaking of supporting the work, help support the work that Manlihood's doing. Go buy a t-shirt or go buy a hat. Go to manlihood.com/store and you can represent our brand. You can show it off in the street and show everybody how awesome and cool you are. We've got some awesome t-shirts there. And you can also help support the work we're doing. Why not? Every penny, when you buy a shirt, the profit of that is basically just going to help support this. So let's make it happen. Let's do good stuff. And while we're at it, don't forget Manlihood Plus and leave a rating and a review on this podcast. Share it with a friend. Let's get the word out about what we're doing here at Manlihood. Anyway, guys, as always, I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks for being part of Manlihood. Now it's time for you to rise up and take action. Join the Manlihood Man Cave, our free Facebook group, and connect with the other men on the same journey. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share that episode with a friend. For more, visit manlihood.com.